Everyone for listening to me today. What I'm going to do is give you a bit of a background on a bit of the work that we've been doing the last few months. We've kind of done a little bit of field work, but we've also been doing a lot of. Luckily enough, we've had access to the previous drilling material, so we've been doing a fair few studies on that. Got a multi-element geochem list that we can work from to look at the geochemistry, and this is pointing us with Rocky Gully looking like it's quite a nice little carbonatite system that was first recognised by Heron, but I guess at the time critical minerals weren't as critical, I guess. But we've kind of, our studies now have shown that this series of rocks down at Rocky Gully, which is about 4 hours south of Perth, is a carbonatite, and that's quite significant when looking for rare earths and neurobium. I'll just bring you into this preso. Usual disclaimer. So, as I said, we've identified a high value carbonatite system at Rocky Gully, and how we've done that is basically by looking at the old drill chips and finding actual carbonatite material within the drill chips, particularly down the bottom of one hole, which was quite significant. We've done a fair bit of geophysical modelling and geochemical modelling, and we can see pipe-like feature and alteration, and we see relationships in the geochemistry which is strongly similar to what we would see in a carbonatite system. Carbonatites are fairly significant things when it comes to finding ore bodies, and I'll go through that a little bit. There are other West Australians exploring for that. And the area probably that most people know is the Gascoyne with Dreadnought and Hastings, but also the Arunta where WA1 Resources had their discovery last year. So part of the Albany Fraser Belt, we looked at this project originally as an ionic rare earth type project, but as we got our teeth into it more, we realised that the rare earths were probably related to the alteration of the system, of a larger kind of carbonatitic system. There's also some ultramafics in our tenure that also might be related to that, and those ultramafics show signs of nickel sulfides, and there's been some previous drilling there looking for nickel sulfides and have had up to 2% nickel. And it's not uncommon to find ultramafics related to a carbonatite system. So what is a carbonatite? So carbonatite is basically a magmatic carbonate, and they're quite rare, and they usually have quite a complex, and they're quite complex, and they have series of multiple phases of intrusions and dikes and cone sheet type structures and significant alteration. And in that alteration, often that's where you get your rare earths. So what really kind of struck me while I was doing some studies or looking at carbonatites was the success rate of carbonatites, and that there was a study by the Ontario Geological Survey who put together a database of all carbonatites on the planet, and what they found was that 9% of carbonatites were being mined or have been mined, and then another 11% have a resource. So that's a pretty successful. That's a pretty successful strike rate in exploration. So so that's a nearly 1 in 10 chance, which is a lot better than what you'd get in any other kind of mineralized system. So the carbonatites in WA, that Mount Weld obviously is the most common one. As I said, there's exploration going on in the Gascoyne. and in the Kimberley, you've got the Cummings Range, and then obviously the discovery by WA1 Resources, where their share price went up to $2 after listing 20 cents last year. So that people kind of like that. That's the kind of system that we're in. So our strategy there at Rocky Gully is we've kind of mapped out the hydrothermal system, and we mapped out we think where the carbonatite is. We've looked at the drilling, and we think we know where to put drill holes for a first round of drilling to get ourselves deeper into the system, particularly kind of vectoring into the neck or the main chamber of the system where we think that the rare earths may sit. But to get there, we'll probably also do some gravity and some ground mag to kind of get a better definition of that, and that's going to happen in the next few weeks. And then we've also got a series of drill programs lined up. First one is an air core program to get a geochemical signature of how far the extent of this system is, and then eventually a diamond and RC program to kind of drill underneath where we know that there's a carbonatite. So this is the hole that we kind of looked at in more detail. So it had a carbonatite intrusive at the bottom of the hole. It had some elevated rare earths, but it also had a series of alteration linked to those rare earths. But we also saw evidence of carbonatites in some other holes as well, with some heavy alteration. The geophysics is quite compelling, I guess. So we have a geophysical consultant, Paul Mutton, who's been working with me since the company listed, and we've been working on this geophysical modelling, and what we found was that there's a kind of a pipe-like feature that sits where the mag low is. We also see mag high alteration right around the edges of this pipe-like feature, but we also see alteration picked up in an early EM study, which is quite compelling in that we see a late time, quite large late time VTEM conductor that when we started actually pulling it apart, it had to be related to the alteration. We did some petrology. That's looking down a microscope, but in this case, I've had many years' experience before I became an explorer. I did a PhD and a research fellowship at Edinburgh University, where I spent hours upon hours sitting on scanning electron microscopes. So I use that skill now. Hadn't used it for a good 30 years, and got in and had a look at some of the textures and mineralogy of this carbonatite material, and it looked very, very much what we thought at a macro level, but looking at it at a micro level, we're seeing coarse magmatic textures. We're also seeing strange minerals that really you only find in carbonatitic systems. We did some multi-element geochem. We looked at what kind of carbonatite we think we're in, and we're in a magnesium-rich system, which is quite good for rare earth mineralization. We also saw the rare earths that we're seeing in the bedrocks are related to this alteration, and we're seeing that with potassium alteration, but also in other elements as well. So there's a strong link between an increase in rare earths to the increase in alteration, is what you expect to see in a carbonatite. So we've seen mineralization at the surface, and we were looking at that quite significantly, but now we're kind of now more focusing on the bigger picture. The material that we're seeing at the surface is fine grain monazite. It's not ionic, but we think that's actually better in that what it's showing is basically very similar to other carbonatitic systems like Mount Weld, who also have fine grain recrystallized monazites as a halo around their deposit. So all in all, we're pretty excited. This will be the first kind of carbonatite in the Albany-Fraser belt. This will be one of the this will be a focus for Narryer Metals in the next few months. While we basically at the moment waiting for our geochem to come back from Mount Narn, and we've got probably a few programs there that we're going to get up and running, and also looking at some PGEs and rare earths in our South Australian Ceduna project. Thanks for listening in. Ev,